Hi guys, today's lesson is on density. We will be having an in-class lab on density, so make sure you pay attention to this lesson and that you take notes. At the end of the video, there will be some math questions that are going to be assigned. You are responsible for completing these questions, and we will take up the ones that you're having difficulties with in class. Density. Density is a physical property, and it is the reason why these various substances all layer differently within this cylinder. To understand density, you need to have a good grasp of what mass and volume are. First up, we've got mass. Mass is the amount of matter in a substance, and it is usually measured in grams or kilograms. A conversion that you should know is 1 kilogram is equivalent to 1,000 grams. And the key thing is with mass, make sure that you don't confuse it with weight, because mass and weight are two different things. Weight is the force with which the Earth pulls on a surface, which is influenced by gravity. So for example, on Earth, the mass of a human could be 63.5 kilograms, whereas the weight would be 140 pounds. Whereas on the moon, your mass would still be 63.5 kilograms because that's the amount of matter in the substance, whereas the weight would be 23 pounds. On Jupiter, once again, the mass is the same, 63.5 kilograms, but then the weight is 355 pounds. On the sun, your mass would be 63.5 kilograms, but the weight would be 3,914 pounds. So weight is influenced by gravity, whereas mass is just the amount of matter in a substance, and no matter what planet you're on, your mass will always remain the same. To figure out the mass of a solid, you need to put it on the scale, and then you need to record your value, and don't forget to include the units. To figure out the mass of a liquid, it's not as simple as putting it on the scale, because then the liquid is just going to go everywhere. And so you need a container to keep the liquid in. So in this scenario, we're going to be using a graduated cylinder. You need to measure the mass of the empty graduated cylinder, and then you need to measure the mass of the graduated cylinder with the liquid. Then you would subtract the mass of the graduated cylinder and the liquid with the mass of the empty graduated cylinder. Next up, we've got volume. Volume is the amount of space that an object takes up, and there's a few different units that we use when we're measuring volume. Volume is either measured in milliliters, liters, or centimeters cubed. The units of conversion that you need to know are 1 milliliter is equal to 1 centimeters cubed, and 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. If we're looking at that image there, a liter of the volume of a cube, in this case, is 10 centimeters on each side. So it's 10 by 10 by 10. So 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So the units for this is 1,000 centimeters cubed. That is the volume of this cube. 1,000 centimeters cubed is also equivalent to 1,000 milliliters. And 1,000 milliliters is also equal to 1 liter. To measure the volume of liquids and other objects in our lab, we're going to be using a graduated cylinder. And when you read the measurement on a graduated cylinder, make sure that you're reading at the bottom of the meniscus, in other words, the bottom of that curve. When you are using a real cylinder, you need to be at eye level with the level of the water to make sure that your reading is accurate. The question there asks, what is the volume of water in the cylinder? If you guess 43 milliliters, then you are correct. To measure the volume of a solid, it all depends on whether the object is a regular object or an irregular object. So if it is a regular object, like a cube, you could use a formula length times width times height. And in this case here, it would be 10 centimeters times 8 centimeters times 9 centimeters, and you would get your volume. If your object is an irregular shaped object, kind of like a rock, you can measure using the water displacement method. So what you would do is you would put a set amount of water within a graduated cylinder and record the volume of that water. Then you're going to place the irregular object into that graduated cylinder with the water, and then you're going to record the volume, the new volume of their graduated cylinder. Then you subtract the two values, and that difference will be the volume of the irregular object. Hopefully, now that you have a better understanding of mass and volume, you'll be able to understand the concept of density. Density is the amount of matter in a certain volume, so it's the amount of mass per unit volume. Here we have three substances, wood, water, and iron. All three have the same volume, but they have different masses. So out of the three substances, which do you think has the greatest density? If you guessed iron, then you are correct. Now, if you're looking at these two images, which do you think is more dense, A or B? If you chose A, then you are correct because there is more mass per unit of volume. To calculate density, you need to find the mass of the object and find the volume of the object. You can find the volume by either using an equation, like length times width times height, or by using the water displacement method if it's an irregular shaped object. The equation for density is D equals m over v. Density is equal to mass divided by volume. You need to be able to manipulate the equation D equals m over v so that you could solve for m and that you could solve for v. There are different ways that you can get the correct arrangement of equations. One of the easiest I find is cross multiplication. You know that D equals m over v is really D over 1 is equal to m over v. Then you would cross multiply D times v is equal to 1 times m, which is m. And you have dv equals m. And just to make it a little bit prettier, m is equal to d times v. The other way is probably what you did in grade 9 math when solving equations, or what you will be doing in grade 9 math. You need to solve for v. And so if you have m equals d times v, you need to isolate v, and to do that you must get rid of d on one side. So you need to divide by d, and what you do on one side you need to do to the other. Then you cancel and rearrange. And there you have v equals m over d. When tackling density math problems, you need to use GRASP to get the full marks. G stands for what the question gives you. R stands for required, what is the question asking for. A is for analysis, what equation do you need to use. S is for solve, this is where you substitute the numbers into the equation and solve with the correct number of sig figs. Paraphrase, you write the full sentence with your answer in the correct number of sig figs. Here's a sample problem. What is the density of carbon dioxide gas if 0.196 grams occupies a volume of 100 milliliters? First step is given. You write down what the question gives you. Then you write down what's required. In this case, it's density. Analysis, you plug in the equation, D equals m over v. Solve, D equals m over v. So you're substituting the given values into the equation. Then you plug it into your calculator. Make sure your answer is in the correct number of sig figs. Make sure that your units are present. Then you paraphrase, you write your complete sentence. Therefore, the density of carbon dioxide gas is 0.00196 grams per milliliter. Here are the density word problems that you're responsible for. Make sure that all of your answers are in the correct number of sig figs. Have fun!